All right, ready to get them started.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression around people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. The Education Advocacy Station. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist Patrice Gibbs, ready to get it started. And as is becoming a tradition with opening our show, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here on the Open Eye. All right. You know what? Let me get the disclaimer out the way right quick. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
That's right. We're not trying to malign anybody. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to open your eye, waking you up. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. All right. As we always do, we're going to start with some history. Sunshine, moonlight, good times, boogie. Tell me you didn't just hear that in Michael Jackson's voice. On August 29th, 1958, a legend was born. Michael Jackson didn't immediately know he was going to be a legend. No one did. But what he accomplished in his lifetime set and broke records and gave everyone else something to aspire to. He was truly the king of pop. These days, people still want to argue over who will be heir to the throne, but the truth is, The king of pop died on June 29th, 2009, and there will never be another. Don't bother commenting on this, and you know it's not up for argument. You can argue with your friends who is this Harry Styles dude might be really doing something. I had no idea who the hell Harry Styles is. All right, but and you know what? Michael Jackson and his legacy. You know, I just want to share a few facts. All right, Michael Jackson was the voice of the Jackson 5. I know he had 4 other brothers on the stage with him, 2 of whom could strum a funky guitar. Well, Tito played guitar, Jermaine played bass, and they were great at it. But his youthful vocals were so bright and pure, every song he sang was a hit. Whether the mainstream considered it a hit or not, the boy had talent. Mimicking James Brown's moves as he danced on stage and making his voice tremble in all the right places when he sang. Those love songs he was too young to understand. He showed right from the start that he was destined for greatness. Indeed, he was. He was definitely destined for greatness. And you know what? Thriller was his biggest album, okay? But Off the Wall was probably his best album. I think every song on that album was just off the hook, you know. And I tell you something else. Was it Off the Wall? Came out in '79. I think I was in the Air Force. I was 18 years old, you know. And I tell you, when Thriller hit, and of course, the night that he became a superstar, that he reached the stratosphere, was of course the night of Motown 25, when you know he did his solo after he sang with his brothers, sang Billie Jean, and then for the first time on live TV he did the moonwalk. And after that he was pretty much known as the Moonwalker. You know, like I said, you know, Michael, and of course he revolutionized music video. Though MTV didn't want him, you know, MTV started out real racist, you know, but they couldn't deny Michael Jackson. You know, and you want some examples of how he revolutionized. Just look up on YouTube. Look at Billie Jean. Look at Beat It. Look at, of course, the video for Thriller, and just so many others, you know. And I tell you, in summation, Michael Jackson is the pop music GOAT, greatest of all time. He is often imitated, but never duplicated. We only got one, and he's gone now. And you know, the rest of these dudes coming up behind him are musically, popularly his sons. And there's no argument there. And I'd like to thank Monique Judge for some of the things she put out on that. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Hey, Sherry, I see you, sister. How you doing? All right. Okay. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. Yeah, buddy, thank you. Yeah, and host of the Open Eye right here. Okay, let's just keep it moving. You know, white scholars did not attempt to hide the advancements of Kemet initially. You know, of course, we know Kemet as Egypt. Well, actually, it'd be rather difficult to hide the vast physical evidence present throughout the region, and the plethora of inscriptions on the walls and in the texts. I've seen them. But the core of their deception was focused on misleading the masses about who the people of ancient Kemet actually were. And they're still at it. It's unbelievable. And while they shoot off the wide noses, they may have shot off the wide noses and crushed the full lips of many of the statues, the truth will ultimately be told. The original inhabitants were our people. Okay? And just a few of the achievements of our ancestors. We say our ancestors are the Egyptians. How can you don't know? You're here in America, most likely you came from West Africa. Follow the migrations. I always tell people that. Follow the migrations after Egypt fell and after Egypt was invaded. I mean, we had, okay, the migrations from Egypt throughout the African continent eventually landed in West Africa. Right? Just some of their achievements. And this is from 3000 BC to 31 BC. They were the first people to divide a day into 24 hours. They built the world's first monumental stone structure, the pyramid. They produced the world's first physician, Imhotep. They invented the 365-day calendar, which all calendars since have been based on. Okay? The Greeks and the Romans, they took what the Egyptians did and they screwed it up. To tell you the truth. They were the first civilization to create a police force. Okay? They were the first civilization to organize labor strikes. They invented the act of male circumcision. Can't get that out. Created the world's first ever prosthetic body parts. They invented medical surgery. They invented toothpaste, which the rotten tooth Europeans didn't get until the Moors came along. Can't imagine what people's breath smelled like. They created the world's first written language. Okay? They created industry, institutions, because you had to have a written language. They invented paper. Okay? In order to do all the planning and what have you, they had to write it down. They had to figure it out. And of course, they invented mathematics. Okay? People give, and this is really strange to me, people give all this credit to the Romans and what have you. Okay? The Romans didn't have any mathematics. Because a lot of what they did, they stole, of course, from Egypt and the Greeks, which the Greeks, of course, stole from Egypt. Oh, and they had Roman numerals. You seen Roman numerals? The Roman numeral for 1 is an I. The Roman numeral for 100 is a C. Try to balance your checkbook with some Roman numerals. The hell out of here. They invented the world's first breath mints. They invented barbering. They invented the door lock, eye makeup. They created the world's oldest known spiritual text. And the list just goes on and on. And it's something that, many of our people for a long time have not looked to Egypt. Where do we look? And why would you give up great monuments, 100,000 years of history for a fantasy in a book written by some ignoramuses that just came on the historical stage 2 days ago? I'm talking about the Europeans and Christianity. Mm-hmm. And as the refugees from Egypt spread throughout Africa, everywhere they touched, that civilization advanced because they brought their science with them. That's right. And Sister Sherry said the Arabs in Egypt swear they're original Egyptians. No way in hell. No way in hell. Like I said, these are some people that just came on the historical stage 2 days ago. Okay, these tent dwellers had no written language. They had no idea. They just stopped living in tents, 70 years ago? They had no idea of architecture. All right, let's move on. Something I want to bring up here that a lot of people don't realize is about, and we don't talk enough about, is the partitioning of Africa and how the borders were set by the Europeans, and why in the hell are our brothers and sisters on the motherland still honoring these borders? Lest we forget, in 1884, 13 European nations shamelessly gathered in Berlin to parcel out the African continent like famished school children on a school trip. They haphazardly divided up Africa like it was a pizza. Great Britain was represented by Sir Edward Mallet. He was the ambassador to the German Empire at the time. The U.S., the emerging but reluctant superpower, had a delegate, the explorer Henry Morton Stanley. In utter disregard and without a single iota of conscience or concern for the culture or the families of the African continent, the map was redrawn and lands claimed. What followed was the systematic scramble and undoing of Africa. Now, resistance was met with the brutal force of gunpowder. Okay? The Hiraho massacre was the first genocide of the 20th century. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children were shot, starved, and tortured to death by German troops as they put down, quote-unquote, rebellious tribes in what is now Namibia. Tens of thousands of defenseless women and children were forced into the Kalahari Desert. Their wells were poisoned and food supplies cut. In Uganda, the first election fraud in favor of Apollo Milton Obote was masterminded by London. Now, the British governor then, Sir Frederick Crawford, was an honest man to a fault. And he resigned because he was unwilling to be party to this mess. This has since become the template for regime survival. Congo and many other African nations have never recovered from this trauma. They're still trying to recover. That was orchestrated by Bismarck's official residence on that bleak weekend. With the emergence of another domineering superpower, may this history not be lost to us. Let us not forget. Hey, it's something that, hey, good morning, boy. They don't want us to talk about our history. First, they told us, don't talk about slavery because slavery was so long ago. Was it? Because if you count it up, it's only 3 generations, 3 grandmothers. And now they tell us, don't talk about racism because talking about racism is actually another form of racism because it makes people uncomfortable. Damn your comfort. Damn your comfort. You know, it's something that, you know, these bleach demons are more critical of people talking about racism than they are actual racism. It makes you a bigot of the lowest order. All these attacks on black history are done for a single purpose, and that is to affect black futures. Because when you have knowledge of your history, it affects how you view yourself in the world. That's what Dr. Clark teaches us. When you know your history, you know your place on the historical geographical clock. The battles over black history and education right now are not just about erasure. It's not just about denial. It's literally about the future of black self-determination. Because if we allow them to tone police us about our history, we have crap like this. Because in America, there's 400 years of documented torture, rape, murder, and terrorism committed by Caucasians. Yet blacks are labeled as having violent tendencies. Now, how in the hell is that? When the mass shootings, 98% of the mass shootings that take place are perpetrated by whom? By white supremacists. When you take one guess, who's the most targeted group for hate crimes? We see what's going on this week. Take one guess. I'll give you a little time to think about WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Anybody that's been paying attention, this is Patrice Gibbs on Open Eye. Anybody that's been paying attention can answer the question I posed before that short musical break. Okay? Every time you hear a story that shares that another black person was the victim of a hate crime, you get the comment that accuses people of, it's reverse racism. Or someone that acts like hate crimes only happen against black people. Firstly, reverse racism, don't get it mixed. It's a myth. Secondly, why I don't believe that hate crimes only happen to black people. All right? But white people hate anybody that ain't white for the most part. We know that they happen more to black people than any other group. And we have the numbers to support that claim. A report was released by the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino, that discovered that black people were targets of 22% of all hate crimes reported in major U.S. cities in the last year. The most of any other demographic in the country. So while that increased from last year when black people were targets of 31% of all hate crimes reported, black people have the largest targets on their back. This comes as the whole country has had eyes focused recently on what? The Jacksonville shooting, where a white man, 21-year-old Ryan Palmer, shot 3 innocent black victims at a Dollar General. And of course, it's currently being investigated as a hate crime, considering he had a swastika emblazoned on his assault rifle and yelled racial slurs at the victims before fatally shooting them. Sometimes allegedly don't apply. While the overall average of hate crimes against black people in the country has fallen by an average of 6%. Many major U.S. cities show a significant increase, including New York, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, and Sacramento, California. When it comes to states, 5. New Jersey, Colorado, Texas, Utah, and Ohio broke state records for hate crimes against black people. Excuse me. For those who question, is this trend over the last few years? No, it's not. It's not a trend. This is what's been going on all along. Blacks remain the most frequent target, not only for these extremist killers, but have been the most frequent target for overall hate crime for every year since data has been collected. Right up through our partial 2023 totals. So when some publications, specifically in this case, The Root, publish all these stories about black people being harassed, assaulted, and murdered simply because of the color of their skin, we're not making this crap up. This is what it actually is. You know, it reminds me, when I said, you know, how they don't want us to talk about it, reminds me of my former employer, where he said when he told me when he first heard of Dr. King and the things that Dr. King was doing, his initial reaction was, he's a troublemaker. Why is he bringing this all up? And this was in 1963. He considered Dr. King a troublemaker. And he didn't evolve in his attitude of that as years went on. He didn't evolve from that. And this is the mindset of most. Why are you bringing this up? You're just causing trouble. You know, that's like I said, they want to silence our voices on that. Oh, why are you bringing up this? You're just making trouble. Can't you? And the worst phrase, can't you just get over it? Let me ask you something. Has anyone asked Jewish people to get over the Holocaust? You wouldn't dare. I'll be damned if I'm going to get over this. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Kill that air conditioner. WHGE 95.3, The Open Eye. I'm your third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. Yes, indeed, bringing it to you. And just to give you an idea of the hate crimes against black people, this is a story that I just ran across this morning, actually. Even with hate crimes on the rise, it's hard to swallow something so heinous could be done by someone so young. Oh, they don't want us to bring it up. But see, they start training them young. Check the story out. A dip in the pool before the fall interrupts the warm weather is the ideal way to end the summer. However, this black boy's swim time was interrupted by a 14-year-old white teen who had other plans. Cape and Island District Attorney Robert J. Galabos said the teen met a black boy and another white kid at the Goose Pond in Chatham, Massachusetts. He said the teen picked up a stone and threatened to hit the black boy with it while spewing racial slurs. Right before the three boys entered the pond, the black boy put on his life vest, informing the others who couldn't swim. However, when everyone jumped in the water, The white team grabbed the black boy's vest and thumped him under the water up to 5 times, causing the boy to struggle breathing. The other white boy yelled, "George Floyd. You can't breathe, George Floyd," like it was funny. The team then continued to attack by swimming underneath the black boy and pulling his feet down. When a bystander heard his screams for help, he was rescued and brought to shore. If this bystander hadn't been there, they was going to drown him. 14 years old. That's how young they start training them. And even before then. Galliboy said the charges against the 14-year-old boy stem from an investigation by several members of the Chatham Police Department, including Chief Michael Anderson and Deputy Chief Lou Malzone. The defendant was found dangerous by Judge 14. He was found dangerous by Judge Sylvia Gomes during a dangerousness hearing in Barnstable Juvenile Court on Thursday, according to the district attorney. The teen is being held without bail and due back in court in September for a pretrial conference. Galliboy said, unlike most states, Massachusetts law allows the records of juvenile legal proceedings to be open to the public just as adult court records. 14. See, what it makes me think of are those photos of black people being lynched with kids in the audience. And those kids in the audience are smirking and smiling and what have you. 14. And some of those kids that are in the crowd celebrating this murder and lynching, these murders and lynchings, are as young as 8 and 10 years old. And by the time they're 14, they're ready to participate in the hate crimes against black people. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Oh. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. I'm going to lighten up for a second here, because I want to tell you some sports history. Right quick here. I know a lot of us don't particularly pay attention to tennis, especially since, Serena Williams I guess she's practically retired, and Venus is getting long in the tooth. She's 43 years old. But there are other young women coming along, young black stars, one of which is Coco Gauff. Now, just this week, Coco Gauff had to deal with this European player who was basically cheating. What she was doing was she would delay serving and delay getting ready to be served to frustrate her opponent. Okay? And she kept doing it and kept doing it. So much so that she won the first set, probably from Coco Gauff's frustration on dealing with her. Now, the referee, she sat up in her high chair and watched this go on and wasn't willing to say a damn thing until Coco Gauff approached her and said, "Hey, do you see what this girl is doing?" Coco Gauff had to advocate for herself, and she did so quite well. Salute this young lady. I think she's like 19 years old. Okay. And check this out. A lady named Candy Odom And she still holds one of the best times for the heptathlon at Florida State University. This means she did 7 events over 2 days. The 800 meter, the 200 meter, the 100 meter, the high jump, the long jump, the javelin, and the shot put. Think Jackie Joyner Kersey. It was Candy Odom that did that. Now, her first love was actually gymnastics. Then in order to go further and excel at gymnastics, she needed to move and go live with another family, but her parents weren't having that. This is why she had no problem after marrying her husband and having their baby. She had no problem giving up her teaching career 19 years, relocating to Florida so that her daughter could train and have access to the best to become the tennis professional that she is. Candy Odom married Corey Goff. Their daughter, Coco Goff. Yeah. So she comes from a line of great athleticism. Her mother was a great athlete. All right. WHGE, moving right along. WHGE 95.3. You're listening to The Open Eye. I know you're enjoying it. All right. All right. Now, earlier, had mentioned the Jacksonville, Florida Dollar General shooter. Okay. Now, after this took place, I know I got her somewhere in here. After this took place, of course, Ron DeSatan, the Imperial Grand Wizard of the Banana Republic of Florida, he got up and made. He came to a rally where he talked about how awful this was and this, that, and the other, as if he didn't have a hand in what's taking place in Florida. Don't forget the NAACP has issued a travel advisory about going to Florida because it's dangerous down there for a black person. And this white supremacist that did this, he left a manifesto, like I said, he left a manifesto, and he, of course, shouted the N-word and what have you. They're talking about allegedly a hate crime. All right. The Satan, he went to this rally where he was rightfully so roundly booed, just like he should have been. And what do you get? This state rep or whatever she is, this bootlick, Jacoby Pittman, she gets up and basically attacks the crowd for booing DeSantis. They should have booed her. They should not have shut up when she did that. They should have booed that hussy down. Negro peeing big wench. Oh, because if he comes with some gifts and some money, I'm going to be right there to get it. Yeah, I'm sure you will. And look, don't get it mixed. This hussy is a Democrat. All right? And she got her sorry ass up there and berated the crowd for booing Ron DeSatan, one of the most racist bastards to sit in the governor's house in Florida, which don't have a good record of not getting racist bastards in their governor's mansion. Jeez Louise. See, that's why we have to get politically astute. That's one of the problems that we have. And move right along here. All right. The oxymoron of police brutality. I got this from KRS-One. Once you become brutal, you are no longer the police. We are not dealing with the police. We're dealing with a federally authorized gang, state funded and government supported. Okay? Now, I went there for specifically for this reason right here. Friday, yesterday, the Ohio police released a video showing an officer's fatal shooting of a pregnant black woman, Takia Young. Ohio authorities on Friday released body cam video showing a police officer fatally shooting Takia Young in her car, and what her family denounced as a gross misuse of power and authority against the pregnant black woman. Sean Walton, an attorney representing Young's family, said the video clearly shows that the August 24th shooting of the 21-year-old black woman was unjustified, and he called for the officer to be fired and charged immediately. Walton also criticized police for not releasing the video footage for more than a week after the shooting. and of course, Takia's family is heartbroken. The video did nothing but confirm their fears that Takia was murdered unjustifiably, and it was just heartbreaking for them to see Takia have her life taken away under such ridiculous circumstances. A spokesman for the police union said calls to charge the officer before an investigation is complete are premature. And of course, the officer is on paid administrative leave while the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation examines the shooting, which is standard practice. A second officer who was on the scene has returned to active duty. Their names, races, and ranks have not been released. Okay, but we could see from the video, even though they were blanked out, that these were white police officers. Now, one of the things that I noticed is when the shooting took place, the police officer whose body cam was actually capturing the footage of the shooting put his hand over his camera. Okay. Now, what happened if you haven't seen the video, it takes heart to watch it. I don't want people watching this and getting used to us seeing us getting killed, but that's what's happening. I'm going to go into that. What these cops did was they came up on her car and accused her of shoplifting. One of the police officers, who already had his gun drawn, stepped in front of the car. She actually asked, "Are you going to shoot me? She asked that. Are you going to shoot me?" Now, the second officer went with the gun drawn, okay? He went and stood in front of the car. Now, she's already asked, "Are you going to shoot me?" Which, of course, any sensible person would be afraid. So she started driving. She started getting out of here. Okay? And this officer, with his gun drawn in front of the car. See, there was a setup. Because in my opinion, they planned on killing her. When he approached the car with his gun drawn and got in front of the car, this gave him the excuse to say that she used the car as a weapon and he had no choice but to protect himself. He was in fear of his life because she was going to run him over with the car, and he shot one fatal shot through the windshield and killed her. See, that was the setup. And she could feel that. That's why she started getting out of there. That's why she asked in fear, "Are y'all going to shoot me?" Fired his gun through the windshield. And then her car drifted to a grocery store's brick wall. Then these officers, who had to know that they have already murdered this girl, hooping and hollering, they break the driver's side window. Belfort said this was to get Young out of the car and render medical aid, though footage of medical assistance, of course, was not provided. In his interview, wait a minute, let me find, who is this? With AP on Friday with the Associated Press, Walton, the attorney representing the family, he denied that Young had stolen anything from the grocery store. He said his firm found a witness who saw Young put down bottles of alcohol as she left the store. So what she was accused of stealing, she put it down before she left the store. So she did not commit any theft. So these officers were not even within their right to place her under arrest, let alone kill her. Okay, the officers' names have not been released. And, they're under investigation. Young's death is one of numerous deaths of black adults and children at the hands of police. They're killing our men, women, and children across the nation. And of course, it's drawn protests and demands for more accountability. Of course, among the most prominent cases was George Floyd's death in May of 2020. As you remember, Floyd died after police officer Derek Chauvin, race soldier Derek Chauvin, pressed a knee on his neck for 9.5 minutes. Okay, and fortunately he was convicted of second-degree murder. I think it was first-degree murder because he had every intention. He made a conscious decision to kill George Floyd, just like this cop made a conscious decision to kill Takia Young. That was a conscious decision that he made. When he went to the front of that car, he knew that he was going to play the role, that he was in danger of getting ran over by the car, and that she was using the car as a weapon. It's murder. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. You know, I see why reading was illegal for our people during slavery. I discovered that I think in words. The more words I know, the more things I think about. Reading was illegal because if you limit someone's vocabulary, you limit their thoughts. They can't even think of freedom because they don't have the language to. If Africans in their diaspora and those of the diaspora were truly inferior, it would be unnecessary to try to rewrite their history, downplay their accomplishments, whitewash their accomplishments, and work for 400 years to limit their future. One of the things I talked about last week was education. Talked about it in the last couple of weeks, actually. I was in high school when desegregation started here in Wilmington, Delaware. The desegregation of the schools has always been a cruel joke on African American students. After the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education ruling, few schools actually desegregated. Some school districts took as long as 20 years to make some semblance of racial adjustment. For instance, Boston in the 1970s, Delaware in the 1970s, as I said earlier. These desegregation efforts were met with what? Much white resentment, hostility, and violence. Just as much violence as in the 1950s. African American leaders were confused about the tactics to educate our children. They confused quality with whiteness. They were fooled by the illusion of inclusion. Because the white schools were much better funded, African Americans would be able to take advantage of the resources that white students enjoy. Not so. So African American students were sent to white suburban schools where they were met by hostile white teachers and school administrators who made immense efforts to see that these students failed. Many of these efforts were very successful. Here in Delaware, the dropout or push-out rate is obscene. I've stated this fact several times. One district in the city of Wilmington for 2 years suffered a 100% dropout rate. I hate calling it dropout, push out, because these students were pushed out. That means not one student from that district graduated from high school. All right? Now, because of charter schools, private schools, special education, alternative schools, racist school boards, and state legislation, many schools are even more segregated than ever. Desegregation has proven to be an abject failure. African Americans made a major mistake attempting to desegregate the schools. Their efforts should have been focused on desegregating resources. Because with substandard resources, we were turning out college-ready quality students. And that's where we made one of our biggest mistakes. And if we haven't learned by now, just looking at how they're whitewashing history, to atone police and anyone that complains about them. You know, and of course, in Florida and in other states, these school boards are being populated with voices that express, well, you know, if we bring that up, it's going to hurt the children. It's going to make children feel bad. You know what? History is not supposed to make you feel good. It's supposed to teach you. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's good. That means your dumbass is learning something. That's right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Coming around to the close here. One of the things that our students get caught up in, like I told you last week, get caught up in the hostility. You had a teacher that used racist cartoons to teach her students that blacks were gangsters. We need to educate our own, like Malcolm and Martin told us. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. I want to thank you for joining us. And as I always say, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This has been The Open Eye. All right. Thank you for joining us. Big ups. Yes, D, how you doing, Tracy? And like I always tell you, Nsoromma wasn't in today. Like I always tell you, global African supremacy is coming. Keep your eye on Africa. It's coming. It's coming. History is circular. We will be back around. Peace.